I opened Andolini's when I was 22 years old. So doing certain things, I think people get bogged down with like, will it be right? Is this good enough? And there is something to be said about perfection being the enemy of progress. All these other dummies did it. I believe I can figure it out too.
People are going to TikTok and saying best pizza in Tulsa.
It's that if you're not impressive by default, you're unimpressive. I think people said, because I did everything, I should win. No.
Mike Bausch, did I pronounce that correct?
Yeah, you got it right.
Man, dude, thank you so much for being here.
Right on, thank you.
You've been only a handful of people that I've met, that I've had on the podcast that I've met for the first time. Literally just shook your hand for the first time. I normally like to, kind of make sure that like I'm gonna vibe with the person, but I felt confident about this one. So for anybody that hasn't heard your name, you're a pizzeria owner here in the Tulsa, Oklahoma area. Top 10 pizzerias in America by TripAdvisor. And also kind of doing a little of research. You also owned one of my favorite restaurants, fine dining, Proximo.
Yep.
And dude, I'm so excited to kind of hear a little bit more about your story. Just because like right before we jumped in, I was telling you that there's so many people that literally think that anybody that has any type of success, that it just kind of happened overnight.
Yeah.
And you've been doing this for over 20 years.
At this point, yes, that's correct.
Man, so talk to me a little bit about what were some of like the hardest things that like whenever you moved here?
Yeah.
What were some of the hardest things of like opening up a restaurant?
Doing anything takes failure and like getting into it. It wasn't extremely hard. I opened up Andolini's within 5 months of moving here. So,
and you had just graduated college, right?
Just graduated.
So you were how old? Like 23?
22.
22.
I opened Andolini's when I was 22 years old. And so doing certain things, I think people get bogged down with like, will it be right? Is this good enough? And there is something to be said about perfection being the enemy of progress. And that's one thing that I see people holding a lot of people back. I think most people know enough to know that there's more to learn, that it's smart to not assume they know everything. But there is it's that bell curve of logic. Like if I try this, you get this like pop of, oh, I'm good at this. I'm really good. Then you have to realize how horrible you are at it to then dig out of that hole to start to get to acumen. And a lot of people never dig out of that hole. They just keep bouncing from thing to thing to thing because it's hard. So if you could just stew in, oh, this is hard, and take pride in getting out of that, then you're good. But if your ego is saying to you, oh, wow, this is hard, therefore I shouldn't do it because I'm not good at it, then you just bounce and bounce and bounce, which happens a lot more now than it used to because of, this is a study from Stanford from a woman named, her last name is DeWick, who did a study on kids, little kids that were told, you're so smart. You're such a smart, and giving confidence, like trying to build up confidence, was actually hurting them compared to children that were told, you're such a hard worker. You always push through. Those kids, when met with a challenge, keep working. The other kids are like, you're so smart. Like, I'm really smart. I shouldn't worry about this because it didn't come easy. So I shouldn't be doing that. So if you could be okay sucking, you'll be much better off than trying to be great day one.
And man, I can already tell this is going to be good because you said one of my most favorite quotes, perfection is the enemy of progress. And that's what everybody wants to do. They want to try to like have the perfect plan before they want to go and buy the perfect outfit, do this research on all these trainers, on all these gyms before they ever just like show up. Like you can literally just get up and then go run a mile or try to, right? Walk a mile, right? It's like, just be okay with not like being the picture perfect, runner that you saw in that magazine, because most likely it's going to take you months, years to get to that. So, would you say that, I believe the stat is that like 25% of new businesses fell within the first 2 years, but you're in the restaurant business, which is a lot harder. And I believe, is it about does that go up from 25 to 60% in the first year? Is that correct?
60% first year, 80% the first 5 years.
So would you say that the people that you're saying that aren't embracing the suck, is that is that the people that truly don't make it? Because I told you that I love quotes, I love stats and everything. One of my other, I say favorite quotes. I don't even know if I can't even call it a favorite quote, but I think about it all the time because I don't know if you've heard this saying that winners never quit and quitters never win.
Mm-hmm.
And in a sense, at first I was very like, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. But as I've, grown in my career and everything, just not seeing just people within my, realm, but outside of it, I look at people that are like just beating a dead horse pretty much. And you're like, dude, like what, like we should just kind of try something new. So like, would you say like what percentage of those people do you think are people that are just straight up, I'm giving up and like I just got to do something easier? And then what percentage of those people you're like they're never meant to be like a restaurant owner?
I think it's a fair look at the normal business. The 20% that fail, they could have figured it out in a regular business. Restaurants, it takes more than that because if you screw up big enough, there's no runway left. You make the screw up and then there's no coming back from it. It's really hard because there's no how-to manual by and large. It's something I've tried to work against is to make it easier on other restaurant owners, but there's no real manual. And then they get locked in their thing and they're like, they just focus on the wrong thing. So even the people who say burn the boats, I'll figure it out. If they keep focusing on the wrong things, by and large with restaurant owners, it's, oh man, we're not making money. We need to make more menu items. I'm a chef. I'll lean on my chef pillar because if there's a bridge from today to tomorrow and tomorrow being successful tomorrow, it's usually built on 4 pillars of a restaurant: the food, the ops, the financials, and the marketing. So they're like, oh, this isn't going well. Let's reinforce this pillar of food. And their financials are like, oh, I don't know. My account gives me that every 3 months. And the marketing, I'm not a Facebook guy. I don't know what you wanted me to do. And then the ops are like, I paid those employees. They should work harder. I'll just pay them more. Like, so those 3 are crumbling, but they're like, we could do food. Or maybe they could kind of do marketing, but they have to have all 4. The real crap of it all with the restaurant is you have to just be awesome at all 4. You have to be like, the food is just the price in the door. That's it.
So would you say that most people that are very passionate about food and are chefs and those, that stat probably goes to like 95% of chefs fail at opening up their own restaurant unless they have like partners that are good at the other things?
Unless they have partners or unless they're willing to learn or figure it out or be like, or again, this goes to ego. They're like, oh, I suck at this. Okay, I'll figure it out. That's the X factor. That's the thing. If you say, I will not fail, and I'm going to open my brain up to be like, what am I not doing right? I better figure it out. Then you can advance. A lot of people, restaurateurs especially, like, we're the best in town. What's wrong with the customer? They don't realize this. And it's just, again, ego on top of ego. Being an entrepreneur is almost very ego-driven decision. I don't want a boss. I'll be my boss. Unless you could be a really good governor of yourself, you're already screwed. You have to be able to call yourself out because you have no daddy anymore. So can you be your own daddy?
And I mean, all that translates to is accountability, and people don't want to be held accountable, especially to themselves. I mean, it's a lot
hard.
Yeah, it's very hard.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that you started your business, and one of the things that you did that most people don't do, because people think of ego and you think of somebody who's successful. And it's crazy. I had a podcast yesterday. I was talking to this top producer, and it was kind of like similar. Some of the things I was talking to her about kind of reminded me of kind of as I was kind of going through and looking at the stuff that I wanted to talk to you about. But so, and for people that are listening, that to kind of go back 20 years ago when you opened Andolini's, you had just graduated college, you moved here from the West Coast, which is probably pretty big culture shock, I would say, especially coming from New York as well too, and in a way, because you grew up there and everything. So how was it here the first few months?
Oh, I mean, I remember the drive into town, and first thing I saw was the Owasso Taco Bell. Got a taco, ordered the taco. Here's the culture shock. Ordered a taco, went around the drive-thru. There was a taco. Now you all are like, okay.
Hey, I was born in Mexico, so
Okay.
don't include me in that group.
I'm saying in California, it's like late at night, you go to the Taco Bell, something's going down.
Oh,
You're not going to get it. You're going to order it. The food's going to come out wrong. Things are going sideways on you. There's a fight going on in the parking lot. There's something else happening. Something else is going to happen. I ordered a taco. I got a taco. And I was like, cool. And then just more normal. Like when you put toast in a toaster, it toasts and you're not surprised by that. Imagine if every time you put toast in a toaster, like 1 out of 4 times it turned into a chicken. That's what it's like living in California or New York. Like that just doesn't happen here. So the normalcy, I think, is taken for granted. Just all right, there's your order, sir. Have a great day. I'm like, okay.
Which is crazy because we look at California, especially now, 20 years, this is 20 years later from what you're talking about. And I mean, people look, not just us, like Oklahoma, like everywhere, people look at California and they're like, man, that place is like I would never want to live there. But the reason why it's still like the most populated state in the country is because that's people's normal. And like, you only know what you know, right? So you go in to this ice cream shop and you are like, hey, I want to buy this from you guys. That works out for you. At that point, did you know you wanted to open a pizza shop?
Yeah, we were.
Or did you buy that and you were like,
We had debated, like, what are we going to do? Maybe we could do a German beer hall. Essentially what Fassler Hall was, and then we're like, maybe we'll do an Italian market. And then we're like, well, all these people just moved here into Owasso. There's essentially a Mazzio's and a Chili's. The Chili's had a line out the door on a Wednesday. That Owasso Chili's was packed. And so we're like, none of these people really have a restaurant. Let's do a classic, pizzeria. Now, a pizzeria is different than a pizza place. A pizzeria would be some place that you could sit down and have a pizza brought to your table along with pasta. That's the definition of one. Like, that's easy enough. I've worked pizza. My brother's worked pizza. Let's do pizza. That's about the thought that went into it. And then it was, okay, where could we do it? And the location.
So it wasn't like this big ordeal that most people, like we talked about, would be like, okay, we're serious about this. Let's go ahead and have 100 meetings, and then let's make sure that we have the logo, that we have the name. Like, no, that was it. And then you just were like, we need a spot.
Mm-hmm.
And you walked in there. Now, talk to me about did you start calling people to figure out how to make the pizza? Was it after you got the spot or before?
Yeah, at the same time. So like moved out here August, September, October, calling places, looking for places. Calling places to look up different recipes while I'm making pizzas in a KitchenAid at the house, and calling up and trying to debate, maybe we could go there. Maybe we could try this location. Maybe we could try this location. And like, oh, well, maybe that. And then got the LLC, and my brother, I was like, hey, where should I go for this? He was like, I don't know. You figure it out. I was like, okay, got it. This is, hey, hello.
Was he just the finance part of it or what? Like,
no, he was like, we were doing the recipes together. We were involved, but he had a full-time job. And I'm thinking like, business. I'm a poli-sci major. And I'm like, where do you go for a health department? He's like, you think I know? I'm like, got it. Okay. This is on me to figure that out. So, hey, how do we get a tax license? I don't know. So everything was figured out mentality. I will say this. Here's what you need to be an entrepreneur. A crap ton of figured out mentality, stubborn, a mix of confidence with just shy of cocky. Not cocky. Confidence is all these other dummies did it. I believe I can figure it out too. Cocky is we're going to be the best there ever was day one. And I think a lot of people edge into cocky. We've always been confident. And then grit. Now coming from the Marine Corps, my brother in the Marine Corps, I'm just like only a few out of doing that with type 1 diabetes. It was like sleep deprivation, pushing, knowing standard operating procedure, cleanliness. It puts a lot of things in perspective about what the mind and body can achieve. So that was the only superpower I had to my name, was that I knew how far I could push myself. And anyone that wants to do it, it's so easy now, comparable. Like getting an LLC, go to LegalZoom. That didn't exist. You want social media? Didn't exist. It's a 2005, 2004, vastly different time than 2009. Like a cataclysmically different time. Yeah. No education, just no even website in Tulsa that says this is where you go to get a business. I was like opening a phone book to find tax commission to then call it. No iPhone, mind you. Hey, how do I get a tax license? You go here. Hey, do you guys know how to get a health department license? Call up this number, and just that and that and that.
So I think that most people will be willing to do the work, and I say most people. A bigger percentage of people would be willing to do the calling of stuff like, I don't know how to open up an LLC, all this stuff. What really impressed me about your starting up that business was that you were calling people for, because at that point, like you said, social media wasn't the thing. Now, like, the reason why social media has transformed my business is because we could be, let's say, in Dallas right now in the studio, and we don't know our way around. So we're trying to go grab lunch after this, and there could be a restaurant right across the street from us that is like literally a really good restaurant. But what's the first thing that we're gonna do? We're gonna pull our phones out and say, best food in near me or in Dallas or whatever, right? And then at that point, it could tell us that the best, say, pizza, for example, it's 2 miles down the road. And even if that place across the street is a pizza place and it's a lot better than the one 2 miles down the road, we're going to go 2 miles down the road, which that wasn't the case back then. So even though now you're saying that the food is not as big of a pillar.
To be clear, the food is a massive pillar. I'm just saying it's not going to save you. And even in that scenario, I agree with your premise, but the beauty of the review thing is that was the saving grace of Applebee's and Red Lobster 20 years ago. It's like, come to us. You know who we are. We have commercials.
Yeah.
This other thing is random. You don't know what's going to happen there. The beauty of social media and the review sites is now they have lost their competitive edge because more eyeballs are on screens on the phone than they are on TVs. And now it's like, well, what's the best? That guy's the best, the local dude. So now that guy across the street that's convenient, the person who's really the best has some level of meritocracy, which didn't, at least there's another level of meritocracy on the food that did not exist, that you truly could have been the best at your four things 20 years ago and still failed. Now, if you're the best at your four things, you have a fighting chance.
Yeah, no, and for anybody listening, I truly believe you can't have a successful restaurant business without having good food. I mean, because like right now, I mean, one of the things that I feel like even pushed social media even further was COVID, when TikTok came along. And I was one of the people, along with most everyone, that says this is one thing that's going to come in and leave. And surely enough, it changed the whole, every platform, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, everything. And well, now that everybody copied them, you have them trying to expand and compete with other people like Amazon. They have the TikTok shop now. And then Google, them trying to compete with as a SEO, search engine optimization. And with that being said, people are going to TikTok and saying best pizza in Tulsa or Dallas, wherever you're at. And people are not going to give those honest reviews if the food's not good. But the reason I was talking about the whole food is because sometimes people think it's all about that. But if you don't have the other, like the marketing, the finance, the operations, like you can't, nobody's ever going to know about that good food, like that really, really good food, you know?
Yeah. I look at the food menu because our first menu was bloated, like super massive menu. If we can do it, we would. Now it's all killer, no filler. I can't impress upon, like, I just released a cookbook with the greatest pizza makers in the world. Like, my food focus and our food focus has always been the top. In fact, for the first 10 years, it was truly all we thought about. We're like, let the other three figure it out. Our ambiance was never like great. We were just, doesn't matter. The food, only the food. As time went on and we saw restaurants that were just like mid-level food with gorgeous interior design doing incredibly well, we started to be like, oh, maybe we thought about this wrong. And the food, I and my brother looked at the food menu as, would we serve this to someone as their last meal? If it wouldn't be someone's dying meal, it's not good enough. So, but the X factor is to not stop there, to not rely on that. to understand. Now it's great. Does John down the street know about it? Have you connected all these things that you're doing from scratch for them to know? Because the assumption that they're just going to wake up and be like, oh, well, you ferment stuff for 5 days. Of course I know. And it's not obvious. How are you connecting that message? And if you do all those right, if you still haven't, known that the insurance bill is due March 3rd because you haven't done projections, you haven't done your financials properly, and then you got a $80,000 hit to your P&L, like, oh crap, hold on, which happens to a lot of restaurants. They just run out of runway. Impeccable restaurants will close because they run out of runway. And then last but not least, the HR always came easy to us, connecting with people and staff and leading people. That part's always been easy, but I see it as a massive struggle to a lot of restaurant owners who are like, these kids, I can't get them to do anything. They're all idiots. I'm like, they're not idiots. You're not training. And the thing I always say when someone says kids are dumb, I'm like, we trusted 17-year-olds to win World War II. I'm pretty sure they can make your meatballs. So before you just say 17-year-olds, they're like, oh no, that was a different generation. I'm like, no, these kids still are going to high school, winning football games. How much should they get paid for that? To show up early for film, to work their ass off and run? Zero. Even the college kids, mostly zero. Why? Because they want to be better. They want to be a part of something. They want greatness. Most people, 95% of people, want to be good at something. The other 5% are just, they're never going to even apply. But anyone who's applied would love to be good at something. It's just, are they getting that nugget from you? Is it, if in the terms of the day, it's carrot or stick, carrot or stick. If it's just stick, 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 then they're going to, how do I avoid the stick? If there's a carrot, like, that was really great. You're really good at that. Hey, I like what you do there. Now, this is where HR, and I say HR, I'm not talking like how you're going to do your 401k. I'm saying how you relate to people. If you can give incentive, whether monetary, emotional, acceptance, now you can build culture and brand. And that's how you move forward. Truly. And truly, why do those kids work so hard? Why do people join cults? It's not because of money. It's not because of reward or because of pain. It's because of ideology. So if you can have some ideological thing like, hey, we're trying to make as much pizza possible to feed as many people and to get as many tax dollars to benefit this place so we could do the most donations possible with you guys at the helm. Now there's an ideological side of it that could take your staff to another level. And that is more than putting cheese on bread.
Yeah, I think it goes with to say that people don't want managers. They want leaders, right? They want mentors. They want coaches.
Yeah.
They want friends, right? Like, but at that point, that's when you're able to truly get somebody like you. I love how you said it. Like, why are there so many cults around? But it's like people are craving that. And then I feel like when you go to, especially like a place like a pizza shop, it's very like, do this, do that. You did this wrong. You did this wrong, right? And the funny thing about that is what makes me, it makes me think of something that I always tell myself. Whether something good happens in my life or whether something bad happens in my life, I always say it's my fault. Right. So let's say that I'm in your shoes and I am the owner of this pizza place. Right. And this pizza place has been going on for 20 years and has multiple locations and, is ranked in the top 10 in the country. That's your fault. Like, that's what you did because you're the owner of it. Right. But let's say that it's like now I can't hire like good people because all these people are lazy, like all this stuff. That's your fault because you're the owner of that place. So whether something good is happening or bad is happening, or whether it's just mediocre, which that to me is like the worst that could happen, like complacency, like that is your responsibility. And so many people don't only want to take credit for the good things and want to point fingers at what's not going right. So that kudos to you for be able to truly recognize that. And I'm glad that you clarified that HR, because I think like even me, like the first thing I was thinking, like you're talking about leadership. You're talking about the environment of the workplace, not necessarily like HR.
HR is a horrible term because it's
I know, like kind of made me cringe a little bit, but
it's a human relations, or better stated, like human connection. And it comes down to, are you a doer or a don'ter? Do you blame others? Do you you're saying own your success, own your failures? There's a beauty in owning it all, because you're never a victim to it. It's not like I would have, but that happened to me, which
Yeah.
is a victim. Like, it's like, oh, that happened to me. I got punched in the face. Now I know what that feels like, so I can progress from it. And I say, like, if you don't get kicked in the stomach twice a day by being an entrepreneur, you're probably doing it wrong.
Yeah. But I mean, people try to run away from that because they want to, like, the goal is to be content, to like everything to go right in life. And that's not life. But I think that if you are expecting it, or at least are like, because you're going to learn from it. I mean, that's whenever I feel like the beauty happens there. To go back real quick, I was trying to go back to where you bought that place. You were calling all these places to try to get some help. That's where I think the difference between people that maybe call to open up an LLC, or like, hey, I don't know how to, who do I call for the utilities and stuff like that? But like the big thing, which was like, what is our recipe going to be?
Yeah.
And so many people are afraid to call other people that are doing the same thing, because whether you want to be original or whether you have that ego when you have zero success. And I love that you did that at the beginning, and now you're coaching other people to where even some people that kind of make it through and they're able to have some success, they try to hold all their cards close to their chest and try not to tell anybody. So talk to me a little bit about where that comes from. I feel like we've already covered enough that whether you're trying to open up a restaurant, whether you're trying to start a new business, whether you're trying to do better at your W-2 salary job, like, I think that the answer is you have to be willing to have the willpower to do hard things that you don't want to do, right? And but in your case, like, what is it? Because I'm the same way. Like, literally, when I started in the business, I called the top producers that were in my area, and I'm like, can I meet with you so I can ask you questions, so you can tell me your story, so I can get there someday. Now, I mean, I'm coaching loan officers, and I'm still getting coached where I'm at in my career.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to ask you, like, where does that come from in you?
Self-preservation. I was calling up I'm like, well, let's call up that pizza place I like a lot. Let's call them up. And they're like, yeah, that, you put milk in it and, you shake it. And I was like, okay. And I was like, oh, this guy's messing with me. Like, I tried it and I was like,
So you had never even made a pizza?
no, I had made pizza, but my recipe was like, I've made pizza in California. I was like, that was good, but I want to make it like that guy. So let me call that guy. So then he gives me a BS recipe. I don't know it's BS. At the time I tried, I was like, oh, this guy's messing with me. I call another guy, doesn't answer. Call another guy. I'll call you back tomorrow with it. I'm like, they're all in their hidey hole protecting it, it's way better now. And today I could just go to, again, YouTube, Tony Gimignani, who's my mentor in pizza, the Pizza Bible. But at that time, and he's the only person who picked up my phone call to answer about how to run the oven, which we were already open. And then I took a recipe that my brother and I had worked on. It was good. We developed it. Then when we opened, we had to change the recipe because it didn't work on a macro level. So then we changed it on the fly. And the things we were doing, we were definitely the best pizza place in Owasso, Oklahoma. But I wanted to be like, if we can't open in Chelsea, Manhattan tomorrow, not good enough. So we kept developing, and then, got in really tight with Tony. He's like, no, you're doing this and this and this and this and this wrong. Cool. Now so another big thing to your point, who's the best? And not say, hey, give me stuff. What can I offer? What can I bring so that it's a friendship and that I can just by osmosis be around it? Surround yourself with people that are doing it and bring value to them is become a notion that's not unique in me saying it now. Didn't exist 20 years ago, at least not intrinsically, where everyone just knew, oh, that's a way smarter way to go about it. Mentorship wasn't as popular or as known. So now there's at least portals to do that. Me, intrinsically, I'm like, oh, I can't fail. Who is not failing? Please help me. I can. And then it failed. And again, I think the most appropriate way to look at entrepreneurship is to think of like a skateboarder. It's truly, you are going, if you want to be in this and you want to do some kickflip or whatever you could think of, you see the YouTube video of this kid doing some massive thing. There's 1,000 falls before that. And that kid got his ass handed to him and he's all banged up. But that one, oh, look at that. That's what entrepreneurship is. It's 1,000 falls for that one look awesome looking thing.
I've never heard it be explained like a skateboarder, but I love that. I think I'm definitely going to remember that there. One thing I wanted to mention that I said that it reminded me of yesterday was you had mentioned that your dad, whenever I don't know if he had already moved over here or not, that he said, so what are you going to do like
When
after
this
this?
fails, yeah.
And you said there's no failure. And yesterday the same question came up because I feel like the biggest reason of why people fail is because they have a backup plan.
Mm-hmm.
And so talk to me about that. Like, what was the pressure? So yesterday I was talking to this agent and she was telling me like, I was a single mom, I only had 6 months of alimony that I was going to get paid. And after that, like it was up to me to provide for my child. So what was your why to not having a second plan?
I said failure is not an option. And would I have been okay otherwise? Probably. But I was like, I ain't drive halfway across America, put everything on the line. And there's no reason that if anyone else has figured this out, that me with nothing else attached to me, not married, no kids, college education, no injuries, there's no reason this should fail. Anything we need to figure out, we can't figure out. And come hell or high water. And that, I went through the Marine Corps with type 1 juvenile diabetes. When my mind says we are doing this, it's a stubborn bastard. So there's a beauty in that. There's a stupidity in it as well. It's a beautiful stupidity, but you're just like, nope, that's happening. And that's what it has to be. It has to be a burn the boats mentality. Now, I could have gone back to law school, but I didn't want to do that. That's not what I was like, no, this is the thing I'm going to figure out. And everyone better get on board. And when you do that, then it's like, okay, I guess we're doing it. Because two things in this world are deeply contagious: apathy and passion. So if you can have the passion one there, people want to get on board with it.
So I'm actually glad that you brought that up because I think that a lot of people think of whether somebody that's as successful as you are in the restaurant business or just open up a restaurant. I think that the last thing that they think about is they think of like a scholar or like somebody that, I mean, you talked about, you just released your a book. That's actually your second book. And then you graduated college and was going to law school, which I don't think that people put author of a couple books and almost went to law school to somebody that owns a pizza shop to where maybe like they invested and they own one, but like your story of like you started from scratch. So what was it that that made you go that completely like a completely different route, in my opinion, from what your story sounds like?
I mean, I'm at law school orientation, and there's no welcome. There's just like, okay, well, we're going to start on the 13th and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I'm looking around.
You're like in court already. It's just like,
I saw the next 20 years of my life flash before my eyes. I saw myself maybe passing the bar. And if I did pass the bar, I'd be getting someone else's coffee down the street off Market in San Francisco. And I was like riding BART from wherever to go here. And I said, and then I was like, hey, do you want to build your own thing? And I thought there are a lot of people walk through the front door in life. I'm getting into this house, but I'm going through the back door. And that's what I thought at that moment. And then I was like, yep, I'll fly out, and, got a Southwest flight, came out to Tulsa. I'm like, great, line at Chili's. They're all going to be our customer. We'll figure it out. Whatever it is, we'll figure it out. And,
your tone changed. So if that really was how you were feeling in your head, I'm so glad you didn't do that. But the sad part is that I guarantee you, other people in that room that felt the same exact way and still went through with it. So a question I have is, how many, in your opinion, how many people that failed, let's just say in any business, the 75% of people that fell in any type of business of starting in the first 2 years fell because of money per se. And money, when I say money, I mean like I'm doing this so I can make a lot of money. I'm doing this so I can make a good living. And the reason I'm asking is because I'm thinking what got those people through that misery. Like your tone completely changed to where it's like, well, I'm going to have that good, good job, that, all this stuff. there's so many people out there living like that. Like I always forget how many people hate what they do.
Yeah. Do you know what Ikagi is?
I never heard of it.
Ikagi is this Japanese concept of like, it's kind of like a Venn diagram. It's like, what are you doing with your life? And then are you really good at it? Does it bring value to the world? Are you happy that you are the one doing it? And I'm riffing right now, and then like, is the world need it? So I think there's a lot of rich people.
Go ahead and tell me that one more time.
Ikagi. Essentially, are you getting paid for it? So let's say they're a stock trader. Yeah. And they're also good at it. Yeah. Does the world need it? No. And does it bring you joy? No. So you find these heavily successful people that are miserable because they don't have something that the world needs or something that brings them joy. Because so in my world, I'm creating something. So a lot of people I've met over the years, like, man, rich guys, like millionaires, I wish I could do what you do because I don't get to create anything. I just trade money all day. And so looking at that, I again, intrinsically felt this. I never was about money, like build a life. Yeah. But I wanted something that was mine. And I think a big part of that was two things. One, every time something hard hit me as a kid, I was like, I want to be the most well-rounded adult as possible. I knew that from like 12. Like, okay, this sucks. That'll make me better. I'm going to do wrestling because I'm not that athletic and I know it's going to be hard. I'm going to do this sport because it's going to be hard. I want to go to this I haven't been to that part of the world. I'd like to see it because I know I'll be a better person. But then like go on a year abroad. I was like, no, I'll waste a year of my life on a vacation. I can't vacate. I need to build. I knew every single thing I was doing was to build towards something. What? I didn't know, but I knew I wanted to build. Then I was even the Marine Corps, not to brag on myself, but I absolutely did not need to do that. My dad was like, why are you doing this? I did all this crap so you didn't have to. And I was like, it looks like the hardest thing possible. That's why I'm going to do it. And he's like, all right. So I went into officer candidate school instead of like enlisted. I went to officer candidate school, had to pass as the OSOs to get into that. And then here I am. And I was like, oh, this is the hardest thing I've ever imagined. I'm getting yelled at, just berated, sleep deprivation. I'm like, okay, I went through all that. I found out I lived. So now I'm like, I just lived through that. I know a lot of people in their 30s that die of diabetes. Don't know if that's going to be me or not. Nothing says it's not. I'm not the best diabetic. I have no idea what I'm doing. So if there's a countdown in this life, what are you doing with it, dummy? And it ain't going to be in a law school and getting someone's coffee. So if there's a countdown, what are you going to go create? And I think that's a beautiful gift to look at life like, okay, how much are you going to get accomplished? How much time is on this earth and what are you doing with it? And I got that at 20. A lot of people realize that at like 55. I had it at 20. So then I'm like, all right, great. Game on. Create. Let's do something. Let's leave a mark. So it was like a bucket list. I got to a point last year where I looked at the bucket list and I was like, went to the White House, got the restaurant, did a book. I was like,
what president did you meet, by the way?
I met Biden last year because I was entrepreneur of the year for the state of Oklahoma. And that was a whole other story. That was like, I thought I was going to Washington for a dinner and they're like, oh, you got invited we're going to go to the White House tomorrow morning. I'm like, cool. Then I was like, oh, we're at a press conference. Cool. Then it's like, oh, the president's speaking to us. Cool. Then it was like, if you look at the photo of me and him, there's a rope in between us because it wasn't a meet and greet.
Yeah.
It was like, I have to walk out this way. And that's a whole separate story, but we're walking out and, the people in front of me go like, Mr. President, the time is, and I think it's, and he's like crying in front of him. He's like, okay. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that crap. And so then I see him, I'm like, hey, then I kind of like do an offhanded joke and he laughs and I laugh. I'm like, shake his hand. Like, it was I'm at the White House. I'm looking behind me at the columns that I've seen destroyed in no less than 6 films is what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Like Independence Day, Mars Attack. That's all. It's very surreal. I'm looking at Apple Maps that I'm like in the Rose Garden as a blue dot because I just had an hour before the press conference starts. Anyway, so then that night it even got more surreal that the photo that he laughs at while shaking my hand is what they post on their Instagram and Twitter as the photo of his. I'm like, this is weird. This is insanity.
Awesome.
So then I was just like, it's a Forrest Gump moment. My life is definitely like this. Like I'm doing Guinness World Records with my pizza friends to write a book, to be at the White House, all because of cheese on bread. I have the bucket list of 20 looking back to like, I wouldn't have developed a bucket list. I wouldn't have gone after it so hard if I didn't think that there was a a ticking clock.
Yeah.
Luckily my health I figured it out, but that's a beautiful thing. I'm very lucky and happy that I have it. And I think to anyone in their 20s, look at it that way. You got 20 years. What are you going to do? Don't look at it like you got 60. Look at it like you got 20. What are you doing to build not wealth? Wealth comes and goes. Suck as much as possible from, I got a voice DM this morning from someone who follows me on Instagram. It says like, I'm 17. What business should I be investing in right now? I'm like, none. You should learn how to suck at as many things as possible so that you have a well-rounded background. Build the hell out of your resume. Find joy in something and then attack it. Not attack it like, oh, I'm relatively good at that. I could become the best at it, or at least in the top 5% of the world, and then monetize it at 30.
That's so good. It reminds me of what drives me every day, no matter not just my job, but everything is I feel like the harder I work at anything, the luckier that I'll get. So all these random things that happen to you, I always think that if that was me, which it's different weird things have happened, I'm like, it's because I'm doing this hard things, which actually, I don't know if you've ever heard, but it's been scientifically proven that the more hard things that you do in life, the longer that you'll actually live.
Oh, I
yeah, I can totally relate with what you're saying too, as far as going back to when you walked out of that law classroom. And one of the things that also just drives me is, you know, whenever my time's done here, and I meet, you know, my creator, I don't want to be told like, this is who you were, and this is who you could have been.
Yeah.
And you left a lot on the plate. Like, that's just my biggest fear. But dude, I appreciate you coming on. I know I asked you, your biggest piece of advice. So if you want to share it with people, I would greatly appreciate it.
In business, it's that if you're not impressive by default, you're unimpressive. That's what I always end with. Like, we gave them the report. We did the thing. Great. That's just expected. By default, it's unimpressive. I think people said, because I did everything, I should win. No, you have to do it impressive and understand that by default, it's unimpressive if it was just checking the box. And most things are check the box. And if you want a business, if you want to be an entrepreneur, if you want a life, it has to be impressive. So truly, what are you doing to that next? Even I think working out, physical fitness is the best example. It really sets the tone. And I've always been someone who works out, but I used to like weigh a bunch more. And physical fitness is like, I worked out. Why am I not? It's like, no, you have to, the mind-body connection and the consistency and the thought and the push. There's so much from proper physical fitness that I think translates not just to business, but to relationships, to life. And if you can land that, if you can be impressive as your MO, not as the anomaly, but the daily, things are easier.
And what I think is crazy, I feel like that's kind of looked down upon in our society. Like, oh, you're trying to do extra credit, huh? Like that workout wasn't hard enough for you, or like, oh, leaving at 5 wasn't good enough for you. Like, and it's crazy.
Mediocrity loves company.
Misery. Yeah. Everybody that, yeah, you said it right, man. Thank you so much for coming on. Where can people find you?
If you are just around in Tulsa, the easiest thing to check out Andolini's is go to andopizza.com or Andolini's worldwide. If you want to connect with me, go to Instagram, Mikey, Mikey, Bausch, Bausch, at Mikey Bausch.
And last thing I want to say to any business owners out there that are feeling like, I got to do the social media thing, because that's what everybody's saying. You have like a social media for your business, but you're creating a personal brand yourself. Like, that was one of the biggest things that I was like, I want to have this guy on, is because like, you're not just like sell. Like, you're like, let me give value with what, like who I am. That's why you're coaching other people. That's why you're doing all these other things now that you've accomplished what you've accomplished. So I just want to give you kudos to that. And I wanted to say it because so many people just want to check the box of, I'm doing the social media thing. And it's like, you know, I just don't agree with it, but kudos to you, man. Thanks for coming on. And I'm excited to keep getting to know you.
Very cool. Thanks.
Yes, sir.